Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson, and we're continuing our study of the prophet Amos as part of our larger study of the writing prophets of the Northern Kingdom. And we're in chapter 6. And in chapter 6, this is not the first, and it will not be the last, but is the longest and the most scathing attack, judgment upon the social injustice in the Northern Kingdom, particularly the income inequality between the super rich and the people upon whose backs they have built their wealth. And he's so vivid when he talks about these things. We remember back earlier, woe to you who are at ease in Zion, you know, who, who lie on your beds and say to your husbands, bring us another drink. He calls them cows of Bashan back in chapter 4, fatted cows, and he's going to be just as vivid, just as incisive, just as derisive in this chapter. I mean, and remember, he's writing to these people, prophesying to these people when times are good, and their borders are secure, and people are making money. Well, some people are. The people in power are. So let's read chapter 6, and hopefully we'll have time to talk through it. A lot of it doesn't need any explanation. It's just so straightforward, like most of Amos is. Woe to those who are at ease in Zion. Now that's interesting, because Zion is Jerusalem. So he's including the southern kingdom as well as the northern kingdom in this general prophecy. Woe to those who are at ease in Zion and those who feel secure on the mountain of Samaria, the capital of the northern kingdom. The distinguished men of the foremost nations, that is sarcasm, to whom the house of Israel comes. Go over to Calneh and look, and from there go to Hamath the great. Then go down to Gath of the Philistines. Are they better kingdoms than these kingdoms? Or is their territory greater than yours? Did you put off the day of calamity, and would you bring near the seat of violence? Those who recline on beds of ivory and sprawl on their couches, eat lambs from the flock, calves from the midst of the stall, who improvise to the sound of the harp, and like David have composed songs for themselves, who drink wine by the bowlful, or some say sacrificial bowls, while they anoint themselves with the finest oils, yet they have not grieved over the ruin of Joseph. Therefore, they will go now into exile at the head of the exiles, and the sprawlers banqueting will pass away. Yahweh God has sworn by himself, the Yahweh God of armies has declared, I loathe the arrogance of Jacob. I detest his citadels. Therefore I will deliver up the city and all it contains. And it will be if 10 men are left in one house, they will die. One's uncle or his undertaker will lift him up to carry out his bones from the house, and will say to the one in the innermost part of the house, is anyone else with you? And that one will say, no one. Then he will answer, keep quiet, for the name of Yahweh is not to be mentioned. For behold, Yahweh, the Lord, is going to command that the great house be smashed to pieces, and the small house to fragments. Do horses run on rocks, or does one plow them with oxen? Yet you have turned justice into poison, the fruit of righteousness into wormwood. You who rejoice in Lo Debar, and say, have we not by our own strength taken Karnaim for ourselves? For behold, I am going to raise up a nation against you, O house of Israel, declares the Lord God of hosts. And they will afflict you from the entrance of Hamath to the brook of Arabah. Okay, there's just so much derision in this, and it's directed to rich folk who have gotten their gain on the back of poor folk, which he's going to go into greater detail about in subsequent verses. But right now, he's just describing their lives of luxury, and he's including the southern kingdom as well as the northern kingdom. The latest biblical archaeology review has just two great articles on a dig that was started when, right outside the old city of Jerusalem, they were going to put in a parking garage, and they found a building that the bottom floor was storage and the upper floor was luxury apartments. And this is from the time of Hezekiah and later, about the time that these guys are prophesying. And they had these crystalline polished red floors, and they had marble sinks with water that would run, and these luxury apartments did. And they found in the rubble, because this was destroyed by the Babylonians, they could clearly and in multiple ways date the destruction of this building to the time of the destruction of the city of Jerusalem by the Babylonians. They found um, marble inlays for the furniture. I just want to show you a picture. These are pieces of marble from about the time that these words were being written, or within a century of these words being written. Pieces of marble intricately carved that were carved to inlay into wooden furniture, beds and couches, and we get to see it. There they are, the very things the prophet's talking about, and we have a picture of them. It's an amazing thing. They recline on couches of ivory. Um, he says to them, go to Kelna and Hamath and Gath. These are all fortified cities, citadels that were taken quite easily by the Assyrians. And he says, do you think you're better? You think that you're going to be okay? You can hold out against the Assyrians? And he describes their luxury, the beds of ivory. The ivory would have come from elephants. It would have been elephant ivory. This ivory is elephant ivory. Something to remember: elephants were not yet extinct in this area at the time of this writing. They just weren't. Syrian elephants. There was still a sizable population of elephants in the north part of Palestine and the west part of Mesopotamia. So this is elephant ivory. They drink a wine out of bowls and sacred bowls. So they're using items of worship for their meals, and they're drinking wine by the bowlful. The great cosmetic commodity for fancy oils, um, and they have all the best oils. They have the best perfumed oils. They eat the best food. Beef was so rare. I mean, it was really for sacrifice and for feast days. But they eat beef every day, and they don't care. They're not grieving over the ruin of Joseph. Why Joseph? Because Joseph's two sons are Ephraim and Manasseh, and Ephraim and Manasseh make up more than half of the population of the northern kingdom. And then in the next verse, he says, "I loathe the arrogance of Jacob." That includes both Judah to the south and the northern kingdom, all of Jacob's children. I detest his citadels, and I'm going to deliver them up. And you're not going to be avoid. And we have this prose section stuck into the poetic section in verses 10 and 11, 9 through 11, talking about everybody in the house being dead. And your uncle and your undertaker having to carry out the body because there's nobody left to do your funeral. And God's going to destroy the house after you're buried. Guess what? The house is going to come down because that's the judgment of the Lord. Um, and he talks, he gives these popular sayings. Do horses run on rocks? Do you plow rocks with oxen? No, but you people, you completely ignore what you're supposed to do. You've turned justice into poison and righteousness into wormwood. It refers back to chapter 5, verse 25. Let justice roll down. 24, excuse me, like water, and righteousness is like an ever-flowing stream. It's poison and it's wormwood. I know I've taken nearly 10 minutes of your time, but the puns, the vicious puns in verse 13. Lodabar and Karnaim are cities that were Syrian cities that the northern kingdom had taken. And so they're crowing about their military victory. But he changes the spelling of the towns just a little bit. So the two words Lodabar mean nothing, no thing. It literally means no, nothing. You've taken nothing. And Karnaim means horns. You went for the animal. All you came away with were the horns. You don't have anything to show for it. You think you do, but you don't. Um, and they will afflict you from the entrance of Hamath to the brook of Arabah, from the north to the south, and that's as far south. Brook of Arabah. is as far south as you can go and be in their territory. Well, I think this is the longest 5 good minutes I've ever given to you, and I apologize for that. We'll pick up with chapter 7 next time. Thank you for joining me, and we look forward to our study again next time.